Okay, I'm going to introduce you to the law of sines, and essentially the law of sines isn't too difficult, but let me just break down a triangle again. If we have triangle ABC, the sides across from it, from the angles, would be the lowercase version of the angle. So in other words, that would be little a, this would be little c, and that would be little b. And it corresponds to the law of sines, which essentially says that the side over the sine of the angle, not the angle. Common mistake is to write this. That is not what the answer is. It's always over the sine of the angle, not the side. And so you're going to get that equals b over the sine of b, which also equals the ratio of c over the sine of c. In other words, that ratio holds true. I can flip these as well to be the sine of the angle over the side. It's just flipping everything. Just make sure you're consistent. Let me show you an example of that. Looks something like this. Here we have triangle ABC, and again, this angle B is 20 degrees, angle C is 100 degrees. I'm going to label this little c, this little b, and of course, this would be little a, and this one would be little b, which we're calling x. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. I'm going to look for x. To set this up, well, we don't know two things here, and so I think originally I had that that c was equal to 16 here. Sorry, I just realized there's something missing. So now to do this one here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for x. Okay, and so now I have that this is 16. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say that x over the sine of 20, okay, x over the sine of 20 is equal to 16, that side, over the sine of 100. Now to solve for x, I'm going to multiply both sides by sine of 20. The reason I do that is because that cancels to give me 1, and now I have this equation. So I'm going to get x is equal to 16 sine of 20 all over the sine of 100. And I punch that exactly in on my calculator. I'm going to go 16 times the sine of 20 all over the sine of 100. And that gives me 5. That's around 5.55. I guess it works out to be about 5.6. And you should look and see that my answer makes sense. This is 5.6. This is 16. It makes sense that this is smaller than this side, not because of the drawing, but because this is 20 degrees. So that should be a smaller side than 100 degrees. That should be bigger. And so just again, looking at an estimate there. Here's another example of using sine law. Suppose I had this triangle ABC. Again, this is little c, there's little b, there's little a. To do this one here, this is 15, 13, and 65. Okay, and so to do this one here, I'm going to say that, well, in this case, I'm looking for the angle, so I'm going to say that the sine of 65, okay, the sine of 65 over 15 is the same ratio as, well, I'm looking for this angle A, so I'm going to call it the sine of x over 13. I'm just going to show you how I set this up. Last time I put the sides at the top. This time I'm putting the angles because that's what I'm looking for, and I'd rather have x as a numerator, not a denominator. So now to solve this, I'm going to multiply by 13 on both sides, and I'm going to get 13 sine of 65 over 15 is equal to the sine of x. Now, this won't solve for x. It'll solve for the sine of x. But I can very quickly solve for x by doing an inverse. So in other words, the measure of angle x, okay, would have to equal the inverse sine of this whole mess of 13 sine of 65 over 15 of that mess there. Let's punch that in our calculator. It's going to look, I'll do this first, okay, this thing. So I'll just say 13 times this sine of 65, and that's all divided by 15. Okay, and I'm going to answer around 0.7854 on my calculator. Now to go to inverse sine, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit second function sine. And that gives me the little inverse sign. And I'm going to say of that answer that I just got. Rather than retyping it, I'm just going to say of that answer. And it gives me an answer of, it's around 51.8. So this angle right here would be 51.8 degrees. And again, looking at it, that kind of makes sense that this is 65 and 15. This is a little smaller side, so it should be a little smaller angle than that. So I get an answer again of x is equal to 51.8 degrees.